From the streets of Chicago to the headlines of the world, you are now tuned into the rhythm of real thought. This is the Daily Mix. 15 minutes of uncut perspective starts right now.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Omari Jahi, and welcome back to the Daily Mix. Today, you guys, we're going to be reviewing, I'm going to be discussing the biopic, Michael. You know, it's a really hot thing going on. You know, I just want to give my little 2 cents, in on this biopic, Michael. But still though, we're going to put our little special insightful mix on it, to give you a better insight into why this movie, well, at least why I believe this movie was created now, and who's really benefiting from the profits of the biopic. Okay, but before we get into all of that, I just want to say that personally, I had my reservations, about Jaafar, and whether he could really pull off, doing this biopic, more or less, if he could really pull it off, because Miles Frost was the closest thing I had seen, because I went to see, there was a play that was going around the country, MJ, I think it was called. And this guy, Miles Frost, was the guy, that they had picked to represent or play Michael. And this dude was really close. He didn't look like Michael, but his mannerisms and all that was really close. And I didn't know if Jaafar was going to be able to pull it off, to be honest with you. But I was pleasantly surprised. Seriously. When I went to go see the movie, by Jaafar not acting like Michael, but in his embodiment of his uncle. At certain angles, he would look just like Michael. His mannerisms and his speaking tone were like Mike's. I was really impressed, especially with the other guy, Giulio Truvaldi. That was the guy that played young Mike. He was awesome. Colman Domingo played Joe Jackson. Awesome job. And of course, Nia Long as Catherine, I'm sorry. That's Catherine Jackson. They did an amazing, fabulous job. And my recommendation is to go see it. If you haven't seen it yet, it's really good. It really is. And the musical soundtrack, you go into the theater, the music is slamming. This is like going to a concert almost, sounding like, how they had that music pumping in the theater. And that helped with the movie's delivery experience. It gave you that Michael Jackson experience, because that's how he moved, with that banging sound, And my rating for the movie is 7 out of 10. I give it a 7, which is really good, because I don't give out 10s, unless it just totally blew me away, But 7 is it's good. You should go see it. I saw it twice. So now to get into my thoughts about why this movie had been made and who would benefit from it, we have to start with the fact that Michael Jackson was not a friend to the music industry. The music industry didn't like Mike. Did I? Oh, yeah. Yeah, the music industry didn't like Mike, and after his passing, the state was being, I guess you call run or The guys that Michael put in charge was this guy here named John Branca. Now, if you've seen the movie, this is the guy, the lawyer that Michael chose to be his personal lawyer and to represent him when he fired. Well, everybody know he fired Joe, you know. So in the movie, he fired Joe, and this was the lawyer that he had picked to represent him. So this guy, he's the one that Michael's selected to be over the estate after he passed, and another guy named John, two Johns, John McClane. Now I don't know this guy, but Michael picked him. You know, I never heard of him or anything, but that don't mean nothing because I didn't hear of him. But these are the two guys that's running Michael's estate, right? Michael planned to complete This Is It tour, remember, and make enough money to pay off a debt that he had on the estate that was well over $500 million. $500 million, y'all. That Michael's estate was in debt. Now, you know Sony Music was trying to get his catalog, or trying to get his 50% of the catalog, trying to get him to sell it, whatever, you know. But at the time of his sudden passing, in 2009, Michael Jackson's financing standard was in a state of severe crisis and disarray. You know, because despite being one of the highest earning artists in history, court documents filed by the estate executives revealed that Jackson was over $500 million in debt when he died. You know, and this Is It was going to be it for him. He wanted to make this money from the tour and kind of pay off some of that debt. But then when I did my little research, Mike was only expecting to earn, or they say he was only going to earn $50 million for these 50 shows in London. And that don't sound too right to me. That's only saying he was getting $1 million per show. And for the king of pop, that don't sound too good. Maybe it's okay. I know athletes that make more money than that, you know. But I digress. You know, that's just my opinion. But this wouldn't even put a dent in Michael's estate debt. If we really look at it, you know, he was holding fast to his 50% ownership of that Sony ATV catalog. And he was being real stubborn about it. He didn't want to sell. And it was very clear that Michael owning this catalog was a serious problem with Sony Music and other industry moguls and people of the music industry. So when Michael died in 2009, he left a $5 million debt, as we said, on his estate. Now, that catalog, that Sony catalog, was worth $2.4 billion in 2016. Now, he died in 2009, right? And so when he died, Michael, just with the catalog alone, was worth $1.2 billion. That's well enough to pay for his little $500 million debts, right? But now, it took 7 years before the estate finally gave in, because they was honoring Michael's wishes. He didn't want to sell his catalog. But when push came to shove, the state had to give in. They sold his 50% shares back to Sony for $750 million in 2016. Now, by doing that, they took a loss of $450 million. Because again, his share of it was $1.2 million. So $450,000 was a loss they took. And 3 years later, the estate began to plan for this biopic. And they started working with the producer, Graham King, this guy here, and securing the music and filming rights. Because when you do a film, biopics, you got to secure with the family and the estate. They got to give you clearance to be able to go ahead and do that, right? And so they started doing that in 2019. The Jackson family was under Michael's support. His fame was supporting that whole family. Well, not the whole family, but the majority of the family, until Michael pulled away from Joe Jackson and started doing his own thing. And this came after the Victory Tour. Joe Jackson talked Michael into doing this tour with his brothers. Excuse me. After the tour, Michael refused to be a participant in any other tours with his brothers because he wanted to do his own thing. But now after his death, this biopic would be the financial cash cow the family can use to sustain themselves. But why were Janet and Paris opposed to the movie? People are speaking on it, but ain't nobody really saying nothing, and they're not really saying anything. But if I'm reading between the lines, this is my thoughts on this. Because they love Michael, and they love for Michael didn't have a dollar sign on it. But the brothers were feeling a certain way when Michael stopped the Victory Tour, right? Leaving them without means to make money. Janet didn't need Michael's money to succeed. And Paris was being taken care of by Michael's through the estate. But this movie will benefit the brothers the most. They are going to benefit from this. And if it's a second movie, which they're talking about doing, again, that's going to benefit the family. And it's going to also benefit the estate. Now, the estate, as we know, takes care of Michael's mom and his 3 kids. His will, he didn't leave nothing to any of his siblings, right? Just to take care of his moms and his 3 kids. And so, by the estate being broke when he died, in debt, well over $500 million, the estate has to build itself back up. And that's what's happening now. Paris, she came out and said a little bit about what the challenge was, because she could see what's going on. And even Stevie Wonder could see what's going on here. That they're taking advantage of Michael's fame using this biopic in order for his remaining brothers, Jackie, Jermaine, Marlon, and then there's one more, Randy, I think. They all gonna get paid from this. I don't know what the percentage is, but they didn't do anything, but they're gonna get paid from this. And as the biopic seems to be doing this, it's the largest earning biopic in the first weekend. I think it said $207 million in the first weekend. And they expecting it to be worth some $2-3 billion, maybe not 3, but maybe $1 or $2 billion overall. That's gonna look real good in Jackie and Marlon and Jermaine's and Randy's pocket. Janet didn't need that. Harris didn't need that. You see what I'm saying? So that's why their view of the biopic wasn't. They didn't like it because of the motivation behind them looking at this, producing this biopic. And so that's why they didn't want to have nothing to do with it. They don't like the fact that this family is using Michael. And you got to understand that there was some jealousy going on in that family. It had to be. Because Michael came up with them other 4 brothers. You see what I'm saying? But they just wasn't as good as he was. And so when Michael started to do his own thing, it left the brothers in the cold. So now they have an opportunity. They have an opportunity, to make this money. Now, Catherine, she's the last warrior standing. Joe Jackson, he did. Catherine, she was fighting. Remember, her and the state was going to court. Because I believe she didn't like the way the estate was being run. Especially when they sold Michael's catalog. Because Michael wouldn't, he wouldn't have approved of that. But she didn't win. And so the 2 guys that Michael put in place for, to run the estate, they are calling the shots. And they got his oldest son, what's his name? Prince Michael Jackson. He's the spokesman for the family. I'm just saying, it's a money grab, but it's okay. Because if anybody makes money off of him, I'd rather for it be his family to get paid and make money off this biopic. So that's my time, y'all. Again, go see the movie. It's a great movie. I love it. So, with that being said, I thank you all for hanging out with me on the day. We'll see y'all black tomorrow. Till then, keep your mind straight. Have peace in your heart. And we'll be white black tomorrow. I'm Amari Jahan. This has been the Daily Mix.
Take care of your mind. Take care of your health. And we'll be back in the mix tomorrow at 12 noon. Till then, peace out.